Assalamu alaikum. Hello and welcome to the Mansuri Show. I'm your host, Arif Mansuri. Today, we are in New York at Pakistan's permanent mission to the United Nations, and it is my distinct privilege to host a highly esteemed diplomat, Ambassador Munir Akram, who is the permanent representative of Pakistan to the United Nations. He has had a very distinct career representing Pakistan on global stage, advocating for Pakistan's interests at various international forums. So first of all, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Mansuri, for having me. Thank you so much.
So before we begin our conversation with Ambassador Munir Akram, I'd like to take a moment to watch this short video about Ambassador and about his remarkable career.
This is an exclusive presentation by the Mansuri Show on ARY Digital TV. Ambassador Munir Akram is a distinguished diplomat, a commanding presence on the global stage, and a voice that carries weight in the halls of the United Nations. With a career defined by strategic leadership and unwavering advocacy, he has played a pivotal role in shaping international discourse. Ambassador Akram assumed his current role as Pakistan's permanent representative to the United Nations on November 1, 2019, bringing decades of experience in diplomacy and international negotiations. This isn't his first tenure at the UN. He previously held the same prestigious position from 2002 to 2008, and before that, represented Pakistan at the UN in Geneva for 7 years. His career is a masterclass in global diplomacy. From serving as Pakistan's ambassador to the European Council, Belgium, and Luxembourg to holding leadership roles at the UN Security Council, not once, but twice, Ambassador Akram has been at the forefront of major international decisions. He has led the Economic and Social Council, chaired the Group of 77 in China, and played a key role in UN administrative reforms. His expertise spans disarmament, trade policy, and international security, making him a vital force in shaping global dialogue. A prolific writer, a sought-after speaker, and a recipient of Pakistan's prestigious Hilal-i-Qaeda-Azam Award for his extraordinary service, Ambassador Akram is more than a diplomat, he is a statesman with a vision.
In the talk to Fulbright scholars, Ambassador Munir Akram highlighted global security and development challenges. He expressed deep concern over the grave issues currently facing the international order.
Ambassador Munir Akram shakes hands with UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres as Pakistan officially assumes its non-permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council for a 2-year term starting January 1, 2025. Over the years, Ambassador Akram has delivered powerful speeches on some of the most pressing global issues of our time. Before we dive into our conversation, let's take a moment to reflect on some of his most impactful addresses.
In a compelling speech, Ambassador Akram described Israel's occupation and actions against Palestinians as the original sin, urging the international community to recognize and uphold Palestinian rights.
If you are equitable, if you are just, you will not blame one side and not the other. And if you were to go back to the issue of who started this, we all know who started this. It is 50 years of Israeli occupation and the murder and killing of Palestinians with impunity that started this. When you push a people into the corner, they will respond. This is what the Secretary General said. It did not happen in a vacuum. And look at the reaction that came from the Israeli representative, insulting the Secretary General, calling for his resignation. They can't face the truth. They can't face justice. They can't face the fact that the crime has originated with the Israelis. The Israeli occupation is the original sin in this case. It is not what happened on the 7th of October. That is the proximate cause. But the real cause is the occupation of Palestine. Purpose is to stop the fighting. The fact that we have reports today that the Israelis have gone on the ground into Gaza, which will escalate the fighting. It is all the more reason for this General Assembly to pass a resolution which is unequivocal in calling for a halt to the fighting, to the hostilities, and that is what we must do this afternoon. I thank you, Mr. President.
In a compelling statement at the UN Security Council reform debate on the veto, Ambassador Akram stressed that the veto's misuse weakens global security. He called for either its abolition or strict limitations, opposing any expansion of veto powers to new permanent members.
Co-chairs, the issue of the veto, which we are considering today, is central to the issue of reform of the Security Council. It is the exercise of the veto or the threat of a veto which is responsible for the frequent inability of the Security Council to act decisively in response to threats to or breaches of international peace and security. Therefore, to make the Council more effective, it is important to either abolish the veto rights of the permanent members or, failing this, to restrict its use as much as possible. In any event, it is vital not to add to the problem by enlarging the veto rights to additional states, and this is one of the principal reasons that Pakistan, the Uniting for Consensus, and many other member states have opposed the creation of new permanent members on the Security Council.
In a powerful address at the UN Security Council briefing on threats to international peace and security caused by terrorist acts, Ambassador Akram highlighted Islamophobia, the critical challenges posed by terrorism, and their impact on global stability.
Despite protestations to the contrary, counter-terrorism policies have so far singled out only one religion, Islam, for affiliation with terrorism and extremism. Such concepts that stigmatize Muslims have fanned the flames of Islamophobia and fueled further radicalization. Mr. President, these gaps in the UN's counter-terrorism efforts need to be addressed, and it is for this reason that Pakistan believes that the UN General Assembly should establish a subsidiary body to promote the universal consideration and balanced implementation of all four pillars of the global counterterrorism strategy, with the vital support of the United Nations Office of Counterterrorism as its executing arm.
At the UN General Assembly debate on the ICJ report, Ambassador Munir Akram condemned the ongoing foreign and colonial occupation of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and Palestine, emphasizing the ICJ's vital role in upholding international law amid Security Council deadlock.
Many peoples, particularly the people of Palestine and occupied Jammu and Kashmir, continue to be subjected to foreign and colonial occupation and denied their right to self-determination. And genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity are being committed with impunity by some rogue states. In this context, and while the Security Council is virtually paralyzed by the frequent use and threat of the veto power of some permanent members of the Security Council, the ICJ has played a prominent role in upholding the principles of the UN Charter and international law.
So, Ambassador Munir Akram, I'd like to begin by asking you, you've had a very long, distinguished career representing Pakistan on some of the world's biggest diplomatic stages and at some of the most crucial turning points in the history. So what has been the most defining moment of your career at the United Nations?
I think it has been, as you said, a long career.
Yes.
And there have been many moments which are of historical importance for Pakistan, both in a positive way and sometimes in a negative way. What I recall from my times here at the UN, which stands out, first of all, what stands out is the fall of Dhaka, which was a tragedy for Pakistan, and it will always be embedded in the minds of all Pakistani diplomats. But then came, of course, the revival of Pakistan and the moment when Pakistan defeated India in a Security Council resolution, a straight one-to-one contest, which we won against India in 1976. Thereafter, of course, there have been many events at the UN of historical importance for Pakistan. The release of our prisoners of war after the 1972 war, the admission of China into the United Nations, which we facilitated, the Iraq war, where Pakistan resisted an endorsement of the invasion of Iraq as a Muslim country on the Security Council. And thereafter, of course, we have had many successes, raising Kashmir 3 times in the Security Council, promoting the campaign against Islamophobia, which has now been recognized by the United Nations. These are some of the achievements or milestones in the career that I've had. But it's been a long one, and there have been many more, which I probably have not mentioned.
Thank you so much. So, Ambassador Akram, Pakistan has once again secured a seat as the non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. So what are the key priorities and strategic objectives that Pakistan aims to achieve during its 2025 to 2026 tenure?
Well, first of all, Pakistan's foreign policy is based on adherence to the principles of the UN Charter, which means right of self-determination, sovereignty of states, respect for the territorial integrity of states, non-use of force. These are basic principles, and our positions on all the issues in the Security Council will be based on the Charter and international law. But apart from contributing to international legality, Pakistan, of course, has its own priorities. Jammu and Kashmir is, of course, our first priority. We have to see how our membership of the Council can be utilized to advance the case on Kashmir. We have a challenge in Afghanistan. We're dealing with Afghanistan and the relationship with our Western neighbor. We have the problem of terrorism, which we are facing from across our borders, which has to be dealt with in an effective way. And of course, we are also a very large contributor to United Nations peacekeeping, which we want to strengthen and reinforce. And these will be some of the objectives. Of course, we are at the moment in a crisis with regard to the Palestine question, Gaza, and the Middle East. And the Security Council is currently preoccupied with that. Pakistan has played a leading role in that, and we will continue to try to contribute to peace and justice for the Palestinian people.
Palestine, you've talked about Palestine at the UN, and considering the ongoing situation, the crisis in Gaza, do you feel or believe that the United Nations Security Council has failed in its role, and what new strategies can Pakistan employ to push for a peaceful resolution?
Well, first of all, I think the failure is not that of the Security Council as much as it is a failure of the member states, or at least those states which have prevented the Security Council from taking enforcement action to implement the resolutions of the Security Council and international law. The onus of blame should lie on those who have blocked this action and have supported the aggression which the Israelis have committed. We, of course, will continue to work with the Arab and the Islamic countries to try and promote a just solution for Palestine. As you know, the challenges are very high at the moment, and there is very little possibility for a quick solution. But nevertheless, Pakistan, through its membership, will continue to work with our Arab and Islamic brothers in order to promote a just and peaceful solution on the basis of what we call the two-state settlement.
You mentioned Kashmir also. So Kashmir has been a very long-standing issue at the UN. So what new diplomatic strategies can Pakistan employ to keep this issue on the global agenda and to seek a peaceful resolution?
Well, Kashmir is on the global agenda. Kashmir is on the agenda of the Security Council, has been since 1948. And also, the position of the United Nations on Kashmir totally aligns with Pakistan's position and the adherence to international law and the Charter. The Secretary General of the United Nations has stated very clearly that a solution to the issue of Jammu and Kashmir must be found on the basis of the UN Charter and the UN Security Council resolutions. And as you know, the Security Council resolutions call for a plebiscite in Jammu and Kashmir in order to enable the people of Jammu and Kashmir to decide their own future.
Mr. Akram, you have spoken against Islamophobia at the UN. So what tangible steps can the international community take to combat the discrimination, the hate speech, the violence against Muslims?
Well, I think the first step was to get the recognition of the international community against the phenomena of Islamophobia. And as you know, 3 years ago, the General Assembly adopted a unanimous resolution deciding to observe the 15th of March each year as the day to combat Islamophobia. Last year, we also secured another resolution which called for a strategy to combat Islamophobia. The first step in that strategy will be the appointment of a special envoy on Islamophobia by the Secretary General of the United Nations. And after that, the second step will be an adoption of a plan of action, which we have proposed to the Secretary General. And hopefully, after the adoption of the plan of action, we will move to the stage of implementation of the plan, which will contain steps such as legal measures to protect against crimes of Islamophobia, recognition that Islamophobia constitutes an offense and should be criminalized, legal assistance to the victims of Islamophobia, education against Islamophobic beliefs and Muslim hatred. So there are several steps that we are going to secure through the United Nations and secure their implementation in order to have a campaign to combat Islamophobia.
Pakistan has been the largest contributor to the UN peacekeeping missions. Now, what reforms do you believe are needed to make these peacekeeping operations, the missions, more effective?
Well, there are several things which we need to do to make peacekeeping more effective. First of all, we have to ensure that the mandates of peacekeeping operations are effective enough to enable them to keep the peace, that the mission has the capabilities, technological capabilities, manpower capabilities, performance capabilities in order to perform these actions, and the adequate resources that will be required for peacekeeping operations. Peacekeeping still is the most cost-effective way of preserving peace and security in many conflict zones in the world, and this is an instrument that needs to be strengthened, and Pakistan is engaged in that. We are hosting a ministerial conference in April to prepare for a full ministerial in Berlin next year, And we hope that through these steps, United Nations peacekeeping will become much more effective in the future.
UN Security Council has been criticized as being ineffective due to the veto power of countries, some of the members. So do you see any reforms in the near future? And how can small nations like Pakistan navigate the system?
Our desire is to make the Security Council much more democratic and much more accountable. And this can be done if there is greater representation of the vast majority of the member states of the UN, the 193 countries, most of whom are small and medium-sized states. And these are the countries which require greater representation on the Security Council. We are facing ambitions from 4 countries which want to become permanent members of the Security Council, and we think that this will add to making the Council even less democratic. So we have opposed the efforts by India, Germany, Japan and Brazil to become permanent members. We are advocating that the expansion of the Security Council should take place only in the category of non-permanent members, elected members, in order to promote democracy and accountability of the Security Council.
So beyond the political diplomacy, how is Pakistan using its economic, cultural and technological standing to enhance its global standing?
Well, at the United Nations, a country's standing comes from its contributions to the work of the United Nations. And Pakistan has always been an active member of the United Nations. We are a leader on peace and security issues, as I mentioned, dealing with peacekeeping, Pacific resolution of disputes, adherence to the Charter. We are a leader on the economic and social issues, having served several times as the chair of the Group of 77, repeatedly as president of the Economic and Social Council. And we have also tried to promote fundamental human rights, in particular the right of self-determination of peoples, which is the foundation of the world order that exists at the present time. So Pakistan has a very active role at the United Nations. We are a prominent member of the United Nations, and I think the recognition of that was evident in the fact that we were elected to the Security Council with such a huge majority of the membership of the United Nations.
Increasing polarization between global powers, how can Pakistan position itself as a bridge between conflicting interests while safeguarding its own national interests?
I would say that our first duty is to protect our own national interests.
Of course.
And therefore, whatever we do in the Security Council or in the General Assembly, we have to do from the perspective of promoting our own interests on Kashmir, on Afghanistan, on counterterrorism, on other issues that are of direct importance to Pakistan. As for serving as a bridge, we can only serve as a bridge if the powers which are competing with each other, the great powers which are competing with each other, want to find a bridge. So they need to want to find a bridge. What we can do in the present circumstances is try to promote some confidence building measures to lower tensions between the great powers. We can try to find ways to restrain the arms race which is taking place. We can try to find ways for a resolution of disputes like the Palestine dispute and other disputes that we are facing, where we can contribute to try to resolve some of these conflicts. This could be the way in which Pakistan can play a prominent role on the international stage.
Ambassador Akram, you've represented Pakistan for quite a long time, and you have accomplished a lot. What are your current priorities? What are you working on that you would like to accomplish?
Well, as you may know, I will be retiring once again very soon, and I will be going back into private life. and hope to then contribute to the promotion of Pakistan's effective diplomacy through whatever writings and whatever lectures that I can provide. But my own effort will be obviously to keep my interest in contributing to the best interests of Pakistan in future, even from a private life.
So we wish you, a great retirement and all the best for that. I'd like to ask you, like you mentioned, you've had a long, very distinguished career. What has been, some of the most valuable, lessons you've learned in international diplomacy, and what advice would you like to give to the young Pakistani diplomats that are, working in the Foreign Service or about to join?
Well, my first advice would be your highest priority is your national interest, and that should trump everything else in terms of whether personal or other considerations. You have to respect yourself to gain the respect of others, and you have to think from positions of strength, of conviction and hard work as the basis to project your own point of view and your national interest. And you have to think long term, not short term. Think of the country, not of yourself.
Mr. Munir Akram, it has been a privilege speaking with you here today at the Pakistan's mission to UN in New York. Thank you so much for this insightful conversation. Wishing you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mansuri. It's a pleasure being with you.
This is all the time we have. Please keep sending us your comments, your feedback at the address on your screen. Please keep watching The Mansuri Show on ARY Digital Television Network. And please keep reading Pakistan Link and Urdu Link. Thank you so much. Till we meet again. Khuda Hafiz.
Parents, show your love with Tahir Halal Kids multivitamin gummies, made in the USA and certified halal. Delicious and packed with essential vitamins, these gummies keep your little ones healthy, happy, and full of energy. No fuss, just fun, because good health should taste great. Tahir Halal. Love, nutrition, and care in every bite.
ताहिर प्रोडक्ट्स आपके खानदान की सेहत के लिए बेहतरीन हलाल विटामिन्स और सप्लीमेंट्स खालिस, मियारी और फखर के साथ अमेरिका में तैयार करदा.
Kaba Fusion is a pharmacist-owned, patient-focused team of professionals with over 30 years' experience providing intravenous medication to patients in the comfort of their own home. Founded by Dr. Sohail Masood, Kaba Fusion has 7 state-of-the-art pharmacies located across the country. Visit us at kabafusion.com to learn more about the benefits of in-home infusion therapy.